Ancient cities were built as earthly mirrors of the starry sky above. This was not chance, but a masterful act of cosmic design, connecting human life directly to the heavens. The study of how ancient builders used the stars to shape entire cities reveals a knowledge of the universe that often rivals our modern science. By the end of this journey, you will understand the hidden language of stellar urban planning and see the night sky as a vast architectural blueprint. We will uncover how entire streets were aligned with solstice sunrises and why pyramids might be perfect maps of constellations. How much of our own world is still secretly guided by these ancient celestial patterns high on a stone platform, under a blanket of stars. A lone figure traces the slow dance of celestial lights. This ancient astronomer was not just a stargazer but an architect of human time and space, mapping the infinite onto the earthly realm. Their meticulous work forms the very foundation of a field we now call archaeoastronomy, a discipline that bridges worlds, combining the tools of the astronomer, the archaeologist, and the anthropologist. It is a science dedicated to listening for the echoes of ancient sky watchers, to understanding how entire cultures wove the cosmos into the fabric of their cities and their beliefs. Pioneering scholars like Dr. Anthony Aveni have shown us that for these builders, the sky was not a distant abstraction. It was a living, breathing map, a divine script that dictated when to plant, when to harvest, and where to build their most sacred spaces. The principles they followed were both elegant and precise. The solstices and equinoxes served as the most fundamental calendar markers, moments when the sun, in its yearly journey, appeared to stand still or create a perfect balance of day and night. The first gleam of a particular star on the horizon might signal the coming rains, but how they watched depended entirely on where they lived. Some cultures were horizon-based astronomers, tracking the rising and setting points of celestial bodies against the distant hills. Others, like the Maya, mastered zenith astronomy, waiting for the moment when the sun passed directly overhead, casting no shadow. This geographical variation meant that every civilization developed a unique relationship with the sky, a personal dialect in the universal language of the stars. We can see this profound connection etched in stone. In Chaco Canyon, a remarkable phenomenon occurs. A sliver of sunlight, a sun dagger, pierces a spiral rock carving. As the seasons turn, this dagger of light moves, perfectly highlighting different parts of the spiral to mark the solstices and equinoxes. It is a permanent stone calendar, a fusion of art, science, and spirituality. Can you even picture a night sky so brilliantly clear, so utterly free of the glow of modern cities, that the Milky Way was not a faint smudge but a radiant river of dust and fire? That was the everyday reality for these ancient observers. Their world was intimately tied to these cycles in a way that is almost impossible for us to grasp today. This deep, foundational knowledge was the first step, the essential primer that allowed them to graduate from marking time to designing empires, using a celestial blueprint of breathtaking mathematical precision. That profound connection to the celestial map found its most fundamental expression in the daily journey of the sun. Long before the magnetic compass, ancient builders possessed a far more reliable tool for orientation: the sun itself. They understood that its path was not random but followed a predictable cycle, reaching its northernmost and southernmost extremes at the solstices. By carefully marking the sunrise and sunset points on these pivotal days, they could establish a near-perfect east-west line, the foundational axis for their entire urban grid. This was not abstract geometry, it was practical cosmology etched into the earth. The primary instrument for this celestial survey was often astonishingly simple: a vertical rod known as a gnomon. By tracking the moving shadow it cast throughout the day and across the seasons, these early engineers could chart the sun's precise journey. They observed the shadow's length at noon, shortest in the summer and longest in the winter, and they noted the exact points on the horizon where the sun rose and set. This simple device allowed them to translate the vast, immeasurable sky into a precise terrestrial blueprint. In ancient Egypt, this knowledge was set in stone on a monumental scale. Obelisks, those towering, needle-like monuments, functioned as giant gnomons. Their long, sharp shadows would sweep across plaza stones, and on certain crucial days of the year, those shadows would point directly down the center of a major avenue or align with a distant temple gateway. Picture the summer solstice dawn in such a city. The first rays of the sun would not just hit the city, they would activate it, flooding the main thoroughfare with a corridor of light, illuminating buildings and pathways that were designed specifically to capture this moment. This alignment was both practical and profoundly spiritual. These solar avenues often doubled as ceremonial pathways. Processions of priests and rulers would walk this path of light, symbolically merging with the sun god's journey, reinforcing the divine order of their society. The entire city became a stage for a cosmic drama played out with the turning of the seasons. Nowhere is this integration more breathtaking than at Teotihuacan in Mexico. The city's colossal central artery, the Street of the Dead, is not aligned to true north. Instead, its orientation is deliberately skewed to align with the setting sun on a specific, significant day, likely connected to the beginning of the agricultural cycle. This was urban planning as a form of worship, where the layout of the metropolis directly reflected a celestial event tied to the sustenance of life. The pyramids lining the street framed the heavens, turning the entire city into a permanent observatory and a temple to the cycles of nature. When you walk through a modern city with its chaotic, profit-driven grids, do you ever feel a sense of disconnection from the natural world? Our ancestors planned their lives and their cities in harmony with these solar rhythms. Their streets were not just for traffic, they were cosmological instruments. This deep solar awareness provided the stable foundation upon which they could then layer the more complex and mysterious patterns of the moon. The moon's dance is far more complex than the sun's steady rhythm. While the sun marks our days and years, the moon weaves a tapestry of months, with phases that shift and an orbit that subtly rocks back and forth over a cycle of 18.6 years. This long cycle, known as the lunar standstill, marks the moments when the moon reaches the very extremes of its rising and setting points on the horizon. Ancient builders did not just notice this pattern, they built it directly into their most sacred spaces. A temple doorway might be positioned so that once every 18 years, the full moon would rise perfectly framed within it, a brilliant silver disk appearing to rest upon the lintel. This was not a casual alignment, it was a long-term appointment with the divine, a celestial event that gave profound meaning to their architecture. Renowned researcher Dr. Clive Ruggles explains that these lunar alignments often served as a sophisticated clock for rituals and for timing essential activities like planting or harvest, connecting the community's survival to the cosmos. To track these intricate cycles, ancient astronomers developed ingenious tools. They used carefully placed stones or carved apertures in walls that acted like a giant sight, pinpointing the moon's position against the horizon. Some structures even incorporated shadow-casting devices that could predict the ominous shadow of an eclipse, turning a fearful event into something that could be anticipated and understood within their worldview. The symbolism went beyond simple alignment. The sacred geometry of their cities often incorporated circles and ellipses, shapes that mirrored the moon's own orbit and the cyclical nature of its phases. These forms were repeated in plaza layouts, temple foundations, and ceremonial grounds, making the entire sacred precinct a map of the lunar journey. Perhaps the most famous example of this lunar mastery is Stonehenge. While its solar alignments are well known, the monument's larger design also captures the moon's extreme positions during its long standstill cycle. The arrangement of the massive sarsen stones and the smaller bluestones creates sightlines that frame both the midwinter sunset and the southernmost rising of the moon, effectively creating a colossal celestial calendar in stone. Can you feel the difference this lunar awareness would have made to a society? Their connection was not just to the sky, but to the tides, to cycles of growth, and to the powerful myths that gave their world meaning. This deep, rhythmic connection to the moon provided a medium-term clock for their lives, but for the most permanent and enduring guidance, they looked beyond our solar system to the fixed, unchanging stars. The moon provided a rhythm, but the stars offered a permanent map. While planets wandered and the moon shifted, the fixed stars remained in their unchanging patterns, generation after generation. This was the ultimate reference point, a celestial template that ancient builders used to anchor their most ambitious projects to the cosmos itself. The guiding principle was a powerful one: as above, so below. By recreating the starry heavens on the earth, they believed they could bring divine order into the human realm, ensuring harmony between the cosmos and their community. It was urban planning on a galactic scale. One of the most discussed examples of this is found at the Giza Plateau in Egypt. Researcher Robert Bovell proposed the Orion correlation theory, suggesting that the three Great Pyramids are a terrestrial mirror of the three stars of Orion's belt. The layout of the pyramids, with two aligned and the third slightly offset, matches the configuration of those bright stars. Furthermore, the southern shafts from the king's chamber were precisely angled to point directly toward Orion and the star Sirius, which the Egyptians associated with the goddess Isis. This was not a random arrangement. It was a deliberate act of cosmic architecture designed to link the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife with the eternal stars. But how did they achieve such precise alignments without modern technology? The methods were elegantly simple. They used basic sighting rods or long corridors within temples that acted as giant telescopes, pinpointing the rising of a specific star on the horizon. They understood that a star would return to the same rising point only once every year, creating a reliable stellar calendar. Over centuries, however, they noticed a slow, grand wobble in the Earth's axis, a phenomenon we call precession. This meant that over long periods, the star that marked the North Pole would change, and the rising positions of constellations would gradually drift. Their celestial maps, set in immovable stone, slowly fell out of sync with the sky above, a silent testament to the vast scales of time they were working with. This stellar mapping was a global phenomenon. In the Maya city of Capon, structures were carefully aligned with the Pleiades star cluster. The appearance of this cluster in the pre-dawn sky signaled the beginning of the rainy season and the time to plant maize, the source of life. A temple doorway might be positioned so that on this critical night, the Pleiades would shine directly through it, its light falling upon an inner altar. The city itself became a functional part of the agricultural cycle, its architecture ensuring the community acted in sync with the cosmos for its very survival. Can you feel what has been lost in our modern, brightly lit world? We have largely severed our direct navigational connection to the starry sky. Our cities are laid out for economic efficiency, not celestial harmony. We rarely look up to find our way or mark our time. This disconnect has subtly altered our sense of place in the universe, moving us from participants in a cosmic order to isolated observers. To achieve this breathtaking precision, to translate the vastness of the night sky into the blueprint for a city, required more than just observation. It demanded a new generation of tools, instruments of astonishing ingenuity that could measure the heavens with Stone Age technology. The Babylonian astronomer's work required tools of elegant simplicity. Under a star-filled sky, he would have relied on a clepsydra, a water clock that measured the passage of time by the steady drip of liquid from one vessel to another. Beside him, a merkit, a forked sighting tool with a weighted plumb line, allowed him to track a star's transit across a specific meridian. This was not guesswork, it was a precise, repeatable scientific process. Across the ancient world, cultures developed their own specialized instruments to capture the cosmos. In Egypt, a notched palm rib called a bay was used to measure the angular height of stars above the horizon, functioning like a primitive sextant. The Maya used cross staffs, simple wooden devices that helped them determine the exact alignment of a celestial body for positioning their temples. Historians of science note that the true power of these tools lay not in their complexity, but in the refined techniques developed through generations of patient observation. A single reading might mean little, but thousands of readings over centuries revealed the deep, predictable patterns of the universe. The final, crucial step was transferring these celestial coordinates from the sky to the ground, and for this they employed the groma. This Roman surveying instrument, essentially a cross with weighted lines, allowed engineers to project perfect right angles and straight lines across vast distances, laying out city grids that mirrored the orderly paths of the stars above. Some cultures even turned still water into an astronomical tool. By observing the perfect reflection of the night sky in a calm, dark pool, they could chart star positions with a clarity that the unaided eye straining upward could not always achieve. This marriage of observation and mathematics was essential. They used basic geometry to calculate angles and distances, turning raw data into architectural blueprints. In China, this pursuit reached a zenith of sophistication with the armillary sphere. This intricate bronze model of the cosmos, with its nested rings representing celestial circles, allowed astronomers to track planetary motions and precisely determine the cardinal directions. This knowledge was directly applied to the sacred task of orienting imperial cities like Beijing along perfect north-south axes, aligning the emperor's domain with the cosmic order. Can you fathom the sheer dedication this work demanded? A single alignment might require observations over a full 18-year lunar cycle or longer, a project spanning multiple human lifetimes. This was science as a form of reverence, a long conversation with the heavens. With these tools, they mastered the sky, but the final proof of their genius is written on the earth itself, in the specific cities they built as permanent monuments to their cosmic understanding. The city of Thebes did not simply exist under the stars, it was a deliberate reflection of them. At the heart of its design was a profound connection to the Nile's life-giving floods and the celestial bodies that governed them. The great temple complex of Karnak, dedicated to the god Amun-Ra, was precisely oriented so that on the dawn of the winter solstice, the rising sun would shine directly down its main axis, flooding the innermost sanctuaries with light. This was more than a spectacle, it was a divine confirmation of the king's power and the cosmic order. The star Sirius played an equally vital role. Its first appearance on the eastern horizon just before sunrise, an event known as the Heliacal Rising, coincided with the annual Nile inundation. This celestial signal, marking the beginning of the Egyptian New Year, was literally built into the city's alignment, linking the rhythm of the heavens directly to the survival of the civilization. Egyptologists explain that maintaining these perfect alignments was the sacred duty of the priest astronomers. These learned individuals were both scientists and theologians. using precise observations to guide the constant expansion of the temple precincts. Every new pylon, every added courtyard had to respect and reinforce the original celestial blueprint. Their work ensured that the architecture remained a faithful mirror of the sky, generation after generation. This cosmic vision extended beyond individual buildings to the entire ritual landscape. The nearly 2-mile-long processional avenue connecting Karnak to the Luxor temple was lined with hundreds of sphinxes. This was not merely a road for royal parades, it was envisioned as a terrestrial echo of the Milky Way, a pathway for the gods themselves to travel between their dwellings. Inside the dark, sacred spaces, the stars continued to guide ritual life. The ceilings of many royal tombs were painted with intricate star clocks, detailed maps of the night sky that helped priests time the complex ceremonies performed for the departed. These charts ensured that every offering, every incantation occurred at its cosmically ordained moment. For the ultimate journey to the afterlife, the Egyptians sought permanence. Their pyramids were often aligned with the circumpolar stars, the so-called imperishable ones that never set below the horizon. By linking a pharaoh's final resting place to these eternal lights, they sought to guarantee his immortality, anchoring his spirit to the unchanging cosmos. Once a year, this entire celestial machine sprang to life during the Opet festival. In a vibrant, noisy procession, the statues of the gods were carried on sacred barks from Karnak to Luxor. As they moved along the sphinx-lined avenue, they were not just traveling between two temples, they were reenacting a cosmic journey, tracing a path that mirrored the stars above. The air would have been thick with incense and the sound of chanting priests, a multisensory experience that blurred the line between earth and heaven for every participant. Can you hear the rhythm of the drums matching the perceived rhythm of the spheres? Can you feel the collective certainty of a people living in a universe they believed was designed for them? Thebes stands as a masterclass in stellar urban design, a principle of sacred geography that would be independently discovered thousands of miles away by the master builders of the Americas. The Street of the Dead cuts a vast and silent swath through the heart of Teotihuacan. This was not merely a road, it was the central axis of a universe in stone, a grand declaration of cosmic order. The entire city, from the colossal pyramid of the sun to the commanding pyramid of the moon, was engineered as a single, unified instrument for reading the heavens. Its main axis is not aligned to true north, but instead points to the setting point of the Pleiades star cluster. In Mesoamerican cosmology, this cluster was profoundly significant, often associated with renewal and the agricultural cycle. Its disappearance and reappearance in the night sky marked critical turning points in the year, and the entire urban grid was rotated to honor this celestial clock. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of the sophisticated methods used to achieve this precision. Scattered throughout the city are pecked cross circles, patterns of small holes hammered into the stone floors. These were not decorations, they were permanent surveying markers. Researchers like Dr. Anthony Aveney suggest these crosses functioned as a city-wide coordinate system, allowing builders to sight lines to distant mountain peaks and specific star risings, effectively locking the man-made landscape into the natural and celestial one. The surrounding mountains were not just a backdrop, they were an integral part of the observatory, their notches and peaks serving as fixed reference points against which the stars and planets would dance. This celestial choreography is evident in the city's smaller structures as well. The Ciudadela, a vast sunken plaza, is oriented so that on the equinoxes, the sun rises directly over the center of its main platform, perfectly bisecting the space with light. Meanwhile, the ornate facade of the Pyramid of Quetzalcoatl is meticulously aligned with the cycles of Venus. The morning star's appearance was deeply woven into Mesoamerican myth, and this pyramid ensured the planet's movements were tracked and celebrated within the urban fabric. Perhaps the most breathtaking visual effect occurs during the equinoxes on the pyramid of the sun. As the sun descends, its light and shadow play across the western staircase. A distinct pattern of triangles of light and shadow forms, connecting to create the illusion of a serpent of light slithering down the steps toward the earth. This was no accident of architecture, it was a deliberate, awe-inspiring spectacle, a manifestation of a feathered serpent deity descending to bless the city. Can you envision the collective gasp of the thousands gathered to witness this event, their faith reinforced by the perfect alignment of their world with the cosmos? What kind of society commits to a building project of this scale and precision? A project that would take generations to complete. It speaks of a shared vision so powerful that it could coordinate the labor of countless individuals over centuries, all working toward a common cosmic blueprint. This deep integration of planetary cycles at Teotihuacan reveals a layer of astronomical knowledge even more dynamic than tracking the fixed stars. The wandering planets added a complex, narrative element to the celestial map, a story written in light that other ancient cultures were equally determined to decode. The planets moved through the fixed stars like wandering gods, their paths a complex scripture that ancient astronomers were determined to decipher. Venus, in particular, commanded attention. Its dramatic cycles as the morning and evening star were meticulously tracked across cultures, from the flat plains of Mesopotamia to the dense jungles of the Maya world. Babylonian astronomers recorded the movements of Venus on clay tablets, noting its appearances and disappearances over decades. This data was not merely archived, it was directly applied to sacred architecture. The entrances to ziggurats, those massive stepped temples, were often aligned with the planet's first gleam on the horizon, ensuring the doorway to the gods was opened by the light of the celestial queen herself. Each planet carried its own potent symbolism, deeply influencing urban planning. Venus was a paradox, revered as a bringer of life and fertility, yet also feared as a warrior deity. Mars, with its distinct reddish glow, was universally seen as an omen of conflict and raw power, influencing where temples of war might be strategically placed within a city's grid. Jupiter, the slow and majestic king, was associated with wisdom and authority. City gates were sometimes oriented to its position in the sky, so that a ruler returning from a journey or a foreign emissary entering would do so under the planet's auspicious influence, a subtle celestial endorsement of state power. The greatest challenge these sky watchers faced was predicting retrograde motion. To the naked eye, a planet like Mars would periodically slow its eastward journey through the stars, stop, reverse direction for several weeks, stop again, and then resume its normal path. This apparent backtracking was a celestial puzzle of the highest order. How did they discern order in this seemingly erratic dance? The answer lies in generations of relentless observation. By charting the planet's positions night after night, year after year, they eventually mapped the complete cycle, understanding that this was a predictable, if complex, pattern. They learned to anticipate these periods of backwards motion, often interpreting them as times of heightened celestial activity or divine judgment. This knowledge was then encoded directly into stone. At the Maya city of Uxmal, the magnificent governor's palace is precisely aligned not to the sun or a fixed star, but to the extreme southern setting point of Venus. On the evening when the planet reached this southernmost position in its 8-year cycle, it would appear to sink directly into the heart of the building's long, ornate facade. This alignment was a permanent public statement linking the ruler's temporal authority to the cosmic power of the planet. His coronation rituals would have been timed to such celestial events, weaving his reign into the very fabric of the cosmos. Can you grasp the intellectual leap required to see past the seemingly random wanderings and uncover a hidden clockwork of incredible precision? They transformed fear of the unknown into a sophisticated science of prediction. This planetary focus demanded more than just observation. It required a new language of numbers and geometry, the mathematical genius that could translate celestial motion into terrestrial design. These celestial designs required a language of numbers, a mathematical precision we once thought impossible for their time. Long before Pythagoras formalized his theorem, ancient builders were using its principles on the ground. A team of surveyors would stretch a rope knotted into 12 equal segments. By arranging this rope into a triangle with sides of 3, 4, and 5 units, they could generate a perfect right angle, the fundamental tool for orienting a temple wall or laying out a city grid. This was practical geometry, directly linking terrestrial measurements to the angular relationships they observed in the sky. The mathematical thinker John Michell described how number sequences derived from astronomical cycles, like the solar year or the lunar month, were literally built into the dimensions of sacred structures. The very length of a temple wall might be a whole number multiple of a key celestial period, turning the building itself into a permanent record of cosmic time. This knowledge of spherical geometry was essential. To track a star's path, they had to understand it was moving across the curved dome of the heavens, not a flat plane. Their alignments required accurate angular measurements, often achieved with astonishingly simple tools like notched sighting rods or circles divided into segments, allowing them to translate the sky's arc into a builder's blueprint. This sacred geometry often incorporated ratios believed to reflect universal harmony. The golden ratio, a proportion found in natural forms from seashells to spiral galaxies, frequently appears in temple layouts. In Greece, the Parthenon's facade is a masterclass in this principle. Its dimensions are not random. They are a carefully calculated rectangle whose proportions create a sense of perfect balance and beauty, ratios that some researchers suggest also resonate with the orbital periods of nearby planets. Can you fathom the process of designing such a structure without modern calculators or blueprints? It was a tradition passed down through generations of master builders, a secret knowledge memorized through chants, rituals, and hands-on apprenticeship. The very stones held the numbers, their placement a form of frozen mathematics. This mathematical foundation was not an abstract exercise. It was the bedrock of the calendar systems that organized every aspect of urban life, from market days to sacred festivals. The rhythm of the ancient city was written in the stars. A market did not simply open because a council decreed it. A temple festival did not begin on a bureaucrat's whim. The entire civic year, from the first day of planting to the most sacred rites of the state, pulsed to a celestial tempo set by the heliacal rising of a star. This was timekeeping on a grand, urban scale, where the cosmos directly regulated the flow of public life. Cultures across the world developed sophisticated lunisolar calendars to manage this complex dance. The Babylonians and the Maya, separated by an ocean, both created systems that masterfully wove together the moon's monthly phases with the sun's yearly journey, using specific stars as their anchor points in the vastness of space. The challenge they faced was fundamental. A lunar year of 12 months is about 11 days shorter than a solar year. Left uncorrected, the seasons would slowly drift through their calendar, causing harvest festivals to occur in the wrong season. The solution was a practice called intercalation. Calendar historians explain that priest astronomers held the sacred duty of periodically inserting an extra month into the year. This was not a random decision. It was based on meticulous observation, waiting for a specific star to rise just before the sun at the precise moment it signaled the need to reset the celestial clock and bring the human realm back into harmony with the heavens. Public time was synchronized through ingenious devices. In Rome, an obelisk served as the gnomon of a giant sundial, its shadow marking not only the hours of the day, but also the progression of the year across a paved plaza, engraved with lines for the months and zodiac signs. Water clocks in civic centers were regularly calibrated against these solar markers, ensuring that even on cloudy days, the city's official time remained tied to the cosmos. The very names of the months and days were often drawn from star lore. In many cultures, a month was not just a period of days, it was the time when a particular constellation was dominant in the night sky, its mythic story playing out overhead. The ancient Romans, for instance, oriented their Regia, the king's sacred house in the Forum, to the star Regulus. The star's heliacal rising would signal the timing of annual ceremonies performed by the Pontifex Maximus, directly linking the authority of the state to a specific point of light. Can you feel the profound difference between their experience of time and our own? Our modern calendar is a purely abstract grid, a human invention detached from the natural world. We have severed the direct link between the turning of the pages on our wall and the majestic dance of the stars above. This cosmic choreography required a permanent home, a dedicated space where the sky could be watched with unwavering focus, leading to the world's first true observatories. The Caracol at Chichen Itza stands as a silent witness to a lost science, its unconventional round tower rising from a square platform like a stone eye fixed upon the horizon. Its narrow, strategically placed windows are not architectural whims, they are precision-engineered sighting tubes. One aligns perfectly with the northernmost setting of Venus, while another captures its southernmost extreme. This entire structure was a dedicated machine for tracking the complex 8-year cycle of the planet, transforming a building into a sophisticated celestial calculator. Across the ancient world, architecture itself became the ultimate instrument of astronomy. In Mesopotamia, the towering ziggurats served a dual purpose. Their steep stairways were not just for priests to ascend, they were grand sighting devices, their edges framing the rising of specific stars against the flat plains, turning each level into a step closer to the gods and a marker in the sky. In China, imperial astronomers used towering star platforms, elevated courtyards where they could chart the heavens without obstruction, meticulously recording the movements of what they called the guest stars, the unpredictable comets and supernova that disrupted the cosmic order. The design of these places was a masterclass in applied science. Long, dark corridors within temples acted as giant camera obscuras, focusing a single beam of light or a pinpoint star onto a marked stone on a specific day of the year. Roof openings and carefully aligned doorways cast moving patches of sunlight that traveled across floor markings, functioning as public clocks and seasonal calendars for the entire community. These structures were never just observatories, they were multi-sensory centers of power. The acoustic properties of certain chambers were often engineered to amplify ritual chants or the sound of a single drum, making the vibrational experience of a ceremony as awe-inspiring as the visual alignment happening overhead. The connection between sound, stone, and star was deeply intentional. In India, the Jantar Mantar observatories take this concept to its monumental conclusion. These are not buildings with instruments inside, they are the instruments themselves. Vast, sweeping curves of masonry form giant sundials that tell the time to within a few seconds. A massive, bowl-shaped structure maps the positions of stars with stunning accuracy. These were public declarations of celestial order, built on a scale that allowed many people to witness and understand the mechanics of the heavens. Yet this accessibility raises a profound question: who truly held the keys to this cosmic knowledge? While the public could see the shadows move on the grand scales, the intricate meanings, the predictions of eclipses, and the timing of rituals were often the closely guarded secrets of a priestly class. This control over celestial information was a primary source of their authority, a way to mediate between the people and the powerful, often unpredictable, gods. The data gathered from decades of observation within these stone instruments did not just fill star charts, it fueled the great mythologies that gave meaning to the cosmos. The stories of gods battling in the heavens or celestial lovers being separated were born from the observed paths of planets and the cycles of stars. These narratives were then physically woven back into the city's layout, with temples dedicated to Venus placed where its light would first touch them, or a processional way mirroring the path of the Milky Way in a local legend. The observatory was therefore the heart of a feedback loop between observation, story, and stone, a cycle that turned raw celestial data into the foundational myths that shaped entire civilizations. The battle between Horus and Seth was not merely a story told, it was a conflict etched into the very landscape of Egypt. Temples dedicated to Horus were deliberately aligned with the stars of the constellation Orion, while those for Seth were oriented toward the Great Bear, placing the god's celestial proxies in an eternal, architectural standoff across the night sky. This was mythology made manifest, a belief that by building the story, you sustained the cosmic order against the ever-present threat of chaos. Comparative mythologists like Joseph Campbell noted that this struggle between order and chaos is a universal theme, and ancient city walls were far more than physical defenses. They were symbolic barriers against the formless void, and the gates were thresholds where the structured world of the city met the untamed wild, a concept mirrored in the stars themselves. The grand creation myths of these cultures served as the original urban planning documents. The Babylonian Enuma Elish describes a universe created from the divided body of the primordial goddess Tiamat, and this cosmic geography was replicated in their cities, with sacred precincts and processional ways mapping the anatomy of a vanquished deity onto the urban grid. Similarly, the Maya Popol Vuh, with its stories of heroic twins descending into the underworld, provided the literal blueprint for their ceremonial ball courts. The long, narrow alley represented the path to the realm of the ancestors, and the stone rings on the walls were portals through which the players reenacted the cosmic ballgame of life, death, and resurrection. This symbolic mapping extended to the very districts of a city. In many ancient metropolises, different neighborhoods were associated with zodiacal symbols or specific constellations, creating a terrestrial zodiac where butchers might live under the sign of the ram and sailors under the guidance of the fish. The journey of a mythic hero was not just recited, it was walked. Processional routes were designed as physical maps of a hero's path, with stations marking trials and triumphs, allowing every citizen to literally follow in the footsteps of their divine ancestors. Nowhere is this integration of myth and metropolis more breathtaking than at Angkor Wat. The entire temple complex is a scale model of the Hindu cosmos. Its concentric galleries represent the mountain ranges surrounding the mythical Mount Meru, the center of the universe, while the vast moat symbolizes the cosmic ocean. The famous bas-reliefs depicting the churning of the ocean of milk are not just decorative art, they are a cosmological instruction manual. On the morning of the spring equinox, the sun rises in perfect alignment over the central tower, illuminating this very scene and turning the entire stone canvas into a living, breathing representation of the moment the gods secured the elixir of immortality. Can you feel the profound sense of purpose this would have given to every individual living within such a designed universe? Their daily lives, their work, their travels through the city, were all part of a grand cosmic narrative. Our modern urban centers, for all their efficiency, lack this kind of unifying story that connects the mundane to the majestic, the street corner to the stars. These powerful mythic foundations did more than organize space. They legitimized power, providing a celestial mandate for the rulers who claimed to be the living representatives of these very gods on earth. The Maya Ajor stood at the summit of the pyramid, the city sprawling beneath him like a map of his authority. But his true power came from above, from the precise moment when Venus flared on the horizon, its light seeming to flow directly into his person. He was not just a political leader, he was a living conduit, the vital link between the celestial and terrestrial realms. This was the essence of the priest-king, a role found across the ancient world where the ruler's primary duty was to mediate cosmic forces for the good of the people. In Egypt, the pharaoh was the embodiment of Horus, the falcon god whose domain was the sky. His coronation was timed to coincide with the heliacal rising of Sirius, ensuring his reign began under the most auspicious star, directly linking his rule to the Nile's life-giving flood. Historians note that king lists were meticulously synchronized with these grand celestial cycles, such as the Sothic cycle that spanned 1,460 years, weaving the lineage of rulers into the fabric of cosmic time. This practice of astrotheology meant that royal architecture was never merely residential or funerary. The palace was the axis mundi, the world's pivot point, and the tomb was a vehicle to the stars. In China, the emperor's sacred duty was to maintain harmony between heaven and earth. The Mingtang, or Hall of Light, was his ceremonial heart. This complex structure was precisely oriented to the pole star, the unmoving center of the revolving heavens. Here, the emperor would perform rituals corresponding to the seasons, moving through the hall's different chambers in a carefully choreographed dance that mirrored the sun's annual journey. His mandate to rule was believed to be granted and constantly renewed by this celestial alignment. Every decision, from declaring war to planting crops, could be influenced by celestial omens. The sudden appearance of a comet or the ominous retrograde motion of Mars was interpreted as a direct message from the gods, a review of the king's performance. Can you fathom the immense pressure resting on one individual's shoulders? The entire community's fortune, its harvests, its safety from disaster, was perceived to depend on his ability to correctly read the sky and perform the proper rites. The city itself was his ultimate tool in this endeavor. The main avenue was not just a processional way, it was the path of a god. The central pyramid was not just a tomb, it was a resurrection machine aimed at the imperishable stars. By designing the urban landscape as a cosmic diagram, the ruler made his connection to the divine order visible, tangible, and unquestionable. His authority was literally set in stone, reflecting the eternal patterns of the heavens. This top-down vision of cosmic order, however, had to be translated into reality on the ground, a task that fell to the skilled surveyors and engineers who wielded surprisingly simple yet profoundly effective tools. The surveyor's rope was his most vital tool, a physical line connecting the celestial plan to the earthly foundation. Under the watchful stars, teams would stretch these knotted cords between stakes hammered into the soil, using the timeless 3-4-5 triangle principle to generate perfect right angles. This was the sacred geometry of the city grid made real. For leveling vast foundations, they employed the chorobates, a long wooden frame with a water-filled channel and plumb lines. By observing the water's perfectly flat surface, they could ensure that even the grandest platform was true to the horizon, creating a stable base for a structure meant to touch the heavens. Engineering historians note that these tools were part of a sophisticated system of measurement. The units themselves were often derived from the human body, like the cubit, the length of a forearm, or were standardized to reflect astronomical distances, turning every length of rope into a reflection of cosmic scale. Achieving a straight sightline over miles of rugged terrain required more than just local measurements. Builders would use a series of poles or markers, sometimes lighting signal fires or creating plumes of smoke on distant hilltops. An observer at the starting point would direct the placement of each successive marker until the entire line was perfectly straight, a feat of visual engineering that could lock a temple's axis to a mountain pass where a star would rise. This process demanded rigorous mathematics for error correction. Small angular mistakes at the beginning would be magnified over great distances, so surveyors used geometric calculations to check their work, ensuring the final alignment was as precise as their celestial observations. The Nazca lines in Peru stand as a breathtaking testament to this marriage of simple tools and grand vision. These massive geoglyphs, etched into the desert floor, depict animals and geometric shapes so large they can only be seen in their entirety from the air. Researchers believe they were plotted using precisely these methods, with teams of workers using ropes and sighting poles to transfer a scaled design from a small sketch to a colossal Earth drawing. Many of the long, straight lines are aligned with the solstice sun or significant star risings, turning the entire plateau into a vast ceremonial landscape oriented to the cosmos. Can you envision the collaboration this required? The silent coordination between the astronomer pointing to a star on the horizon, the mathematician calculating the angle, and the countless laborers moving earth and stone. This was not the work of a lone genius but of a society united by a shared cosmic vision. Their techniques did not fight the natural landscape but conversed with it, using hills as backdrops and valleys as sightlines, weaving their celestial patterns into the very bones of the earth. Machu Picchu clings to the mountainside, its temples and terraces cradled by peaks that seem to touch the sky. This was no arbitrary choice of location. The ancient builders saw the entire landscape as a sacred text, and their cities were carefully written into its pages, aligning celestial events with the immutable features of the earth. They practiced a form of sacred geography where a mountain was not just a mountain, it was a pillar connecting the earth to the heavens, an axis mundi. The sun did not simply rise, it was born from a specific notch between two distant peaks, and a temple doorway was positioned to capture that very first sliver of light on the day of the solstice. Cultural geographers explain that this horizon astronomy transformed the entire surrounding terrain into a permanent, stable observatory. The slow drift of stars due to precession meant that star alignments with man-made pillars would eventually fail, but an alignment with a timeless mountain peak would remain true for millennia. Water was another essential element of this cosmic mirror. A still, dark pool in a ceremonial plaza could reflect the perfect image of the night sky, allowing priests to chart star positions with stunning clarity against the stable reference of the water's edge. This reflection connected the heavens above with the underworld below, a concept made physical by the incorporation of cave systems into city layouts. Caves were seen as portals to the realm of the ancestors, the dark counterpoint to the bright celestial realm, and processional routes often connected these subterranean spaces with high temples, creating a vertical axis through the heart of the city. At Delphi in Greece, this principle of sacred convergence reached its zenith. The temple was not merely built in a scenic location. It was deliberately situated at a point where ancient traditions spoke of powerful earth energies, what some call ley lines, and where the paths of specific stars crossed overhead. The site was declared the omphalos, the navel of the world, a central point from which the divine order emanated. The priestess, the Pythia, would deliver her prophecies from this exact spot, her words believed to be inspired by the unique confluence of terrestrial and celestial forces. Can you sense the profound harmony of a city planned this way, where every street and structure was in dialogue with both the land and the sky? Modern construction often flattens such natural features, prioritizing efficiency over this deep environmental integration. Our buildings stand apart from the world, but theirs were a part of it, woven into a living tapestry of rock, river, and star. This geographical integration was perfected in the high Andes, where cultures like the Inca engineered their empire in stone to mirror the very spine of the world. Cusco was more than a city. It was a living puma carved from stone and belief, its great head the fortress of Sacsayhuaman staring out across the empire. From this sacred center radiated an invisible web of 41 lines called sex, a spiritual map connecting over 350 shrines to the surrounding ring of sacred mountain peaks. Each of these huacas was a node in a vast cosmic circuit, its position along a sect line dictating when specific rituals were to be performed and which stars or sunrises it would align with. Andean scholars explain that this system was the ultimate expression of Inca cosmology, a physical calendar that organized both time and space according to the heavens. The city itself was divided into upper and lower halves, Honan and Huron, reflecting a cosmic duality mirrored in the sky, with different social lineages responsible for maintaining the shrines along their designated sect lines. At the heart of this entire celestial machine stood the Coricancha, the Temple of the Sun. Its walls, once sheathed in gold, were not merely decorative, they were functional astronomical instruments. Precision-cut windows and niches were positioned to frame the rising sun on the June solstice, casting a blade of light onto a sacred stone marker within. Other apertures tracked the dark clouds of the Milky Way, which the Inca saw as a celestial river, and the unwavering Southern Cross, a circumpolar constellation that never set in their skies. Beyond the city limits on the horizon stood pairs of stone pillars. These were the Teotihuacan, the so-called hitching posts of the sun. On the equinoxes, the sun would rise directly between them, and on the solstices, it would crown their summits. The Inca astronomers used these permanent markers to precisely determine the solar dates for their elaborate agricultural and ritual calendar. Can you envision the coordination required to maintain this system across an empire spanning thousands of miles? It was a testament to an organizational genius that bound every community to the cosmic rhythm emanating from Cusco. This connection was made spectacularly public during the Inti Raymi, the festival of the sun. At the winter solstice, when the sun seemed at its weakest, the Sapa Inca would ascend a platform at the center of the great plaza. As the first rays of the sun struck him, he would raise golden cups in a ceremonial toast, symbolically capturing the sun's light and reaffirming his role as its divine representative on Earth. It was a moment of collective renewal where the entire populace witnessed their leader reenacting the solar rebirth, ensuring the sun's return and the continuation of life. Even the water that flowed through the city was part of this cosmic mirror. Carefully engineered irrigation channels were laid out to reflect the bright path of the Milky Way across the night sky, bringing the celestial river down to Earth to nourish their crops. In the Inca world, there was no separation between the hydrological cycle and the galactic one, between urban planning and cosmic order. The city was a machine for living in harmony with the universe, and its social cohesion depended entirely on this shared celestial blueprint. The city itself became the stage for a grand collective ritual. On the morning of the solstice, thousands would gather in the main plaza, their faces turned east in a moment of unified anticipation. As the sun's first rays breached the horizon, flooding the central avenue with light, they were not just spectators, they were participants in a cosmic event that reaffirmed their place in a divinely ordered universe. This shared orientation to the heavens forged powerful social bonds, creating a common identity rooted in celestial cycles. Sociologists note that this cosmological consensus was a primary source of societal stability, a shared belief system physically manifested in the streets they walked every day. Public spaces were meticulously engineered for mass participation in these events. In Egypt, the said festival, or royal jubilee, was a spectacular renewal of the pharaoh's power, timed to a 30-year cycle and performed along astronomically aligned processional routes. The entire community witnessed their king, bathed in the light of the rising sun, physically reenacting his divine mandate to rule. Across the ocean, the great ball court at Capan was not just a sporting arena. Its long alley was oriented as a portal to the underworld, and the game itself was a ritual drama timed to the cycles of Venus. A goal scored when the planet was at its zenith was seen as a direct celestial endorsement, a moment where the fate of the community and the movement of the gods became one. This celestial choreography extended into the most practical aspects of daily life. The agricultural calendar was dictated by the stars, with the heliacal rising of Sirius or the Pleiades signaling the precise window for planting and harvest. This shared celestial timetable synchronized the labor of the entire population, from the farmer in the field to the priest in the temple. Market days were announced by the opening of city gates at a specific stellar hour, and even tax collection and legal proceedings were scheduled according to the celestial calendar, weaving cosmic time into the very fabric of law and economy. The organization of the city itself reflected this cosmic order. In the meticulously planned streets of Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley, the entire grid was aligned to the cardinal directions. This was not merely for efficient drainage, though it achieved that beautifully. It was a profound statement that social order itself was derived from cosmic principles. Neighborhoods were likely allocated based on symbolic divisions that mirrored the heavens, placing different social groups under the auspices of specific celestial patrons. Can you envision a modern public square designed not just for commerce, but for collective stargazing, where the community gathers to mark an equinox or a meteor shower? Our civic spaces have largely lost this function, this direct link between our shared lives and the cosmos above. The stability of these ancient societies depended on more than just stone alignments. It relied on a sophisticated system of knowledge, a living tradition that was carefully passed from one generation to the next. That Maya scribe's brush was not merely painting glyphs, it was weaving a thread of knowledge across centuries. His codex captured the precise rhythm of Venus, a celestial dance observed and recorded by countless generations before him. This sacred duty of preservation was the lifeblood of ancient astronomy, ensuring that hard-won celestial wisdom did not fade with the passing of individual lives. For cultures both with and without writing, the challenge was the same: how to transmit complex data with perfect accuracy across the abyss of time. Anthropologists note that oral traditions were far more than simple stories. They were sophisticated data storage systems. Complex astronomical cycles were embedded within epic poems, chants, and ritual dances. The steady rhythm of a drum might mirror the orbital period of a planet, while the steps of a dance could map the path of a constellation across the sky. These performances turned abstract numbers into visceral, communal experiences, allowing an entire community to become living libraries. For the most specialized knowledge, apprenticeship was essential. A young initiate would spend years at the side of a master, learning not just the positions of stars but the subtle art of observation itself, how to steady the breath and focus the eye on the horizon's hazy line. This knowledge was often guarded by specific families or priesthoods, creating an unbroken chain of celestial custodians. In societies that developed writing, that chain was etched into more permanent media. Babylonian astronomers pressed the cycles of the moon and planets into soft clay tablets using cuneiform, creating a durable archive that could be stored and referenced by future scholars. The Maya painted their bark paper books with intricate glyphs that recorded Venus tables accurate for hundreds of years. These were not just records, they were working manuals for maintaining the cosmic order. The very foundations of cities became time capsules for this knowledge. Before laying a temple's first stone, builders would often deposit ceremonial artifacts, inscribed with the precise astronomical alignments the structure was meant to embody. This act was a message to the future, ensuring that anyone who later repaired or expanded the building would understand its original celestial purpose. Monumental inscriptions served as public records. A stela erected in a city plaza might record a rare planetary conjunction, fixing a precise date in stone for all to see and for generations to come to reference. This practice reached an astonishing scale in ancient China, where the Imperial Astronomical Bureau maintained a continuous, meticulous record of celestial events for over 2,000 years. Comets, sunspots, and guest stars were all logged with painstaking care, creating an unparalleled dataset that modern scientists still use today. Yet this transmission was always fragile. The burning of the Library of Alexandria stands as a haunting symbol of how easily vast repositories of knowledge can vanish in a single moment of conflict. When a social order collapses, when the scribes and star priests are dispersed, the nuanced understanding behind the alignments can be lost, leaving behind silent stones whose full meaning we can only struggle to reconstruct. Can you feel the weight of responsibility carried by those ancient astronomers? They were building not just for their own time, but for a future they would never see, trusting that their descendants would preserve and honor the cosmic patterns they had so carefully decoded. This successful transmission across generations was the invisible engine that made possible the most breathtaking achievements of celestial architecture, allowing cultures separated by vast oceans to independently arrive at a shared understanding of the sky. A master blueprint for the stars appears again and again across the ancient world. The Great Pyramid at Giza, aligned with breathtaking precision to the pole star of its era, finds a distant echo in the Sun Temple at Konark on the coast of India, its entire form designed as a colossal stone chariot oriented to the rising of the very same constellation. Separated by thousands of miles and centuries, these builders never met, yet they arrived at an identical conclusion that the human world must be a mirror of the celestial one. This was not a single invention but a universal human discovery, emerging independently wherever people looked up and wondered. Comparative archaeologists like Dr. John B. Carlson point to this phenomenon not as evidence of a lost superculture, but as a testament to a shared cognitive toolkit, a fundamental human drive to find order in the cosmos and replicate it on Earth. The principles were universal, but the methods were beautifully local, shaped by the environment itself. In the high, clear deserts of Egypt and Mesopotamia, where the horizon is vast and unobstructed, solar alignments were paramount. The sun's dependable path provided the perfect tool for laying out a city's primary axis. Meanwhile, in the dense jungles of Mesoamerica, where the canopy often obscured the horizon, zenith astronomy and the tracking of bright star clusters like the Pleiades became more crucial. The very materials at hand dictated the techniques, from the massive stone obelisks of Egypt to the precise pecked cross circles hammered into the floors of Teotihuacan. We can see this environmental adaptation clearly in the foundational grids of two great empires. The Romans, masters of practical engineering, laid out their cities using the Cardo and Decumanus, two main streets aligned to the solar east-west axis. a system born from the clear skies of the Mediterranean. In China, under a different sky, imperial surveyors took their primary direction from the unmoving pole star, the celestial emperor. Their cities, like Beijing, were meticulously aligned along a north-south axis, a direct reflection of the cosmic hierarchy they saw above, with the emperor's palace positioned as the terrestrial pole star around which all else revolved. Why would cultures with no possible contact each dedicate generations of labor to this same incredibly complex task? The answer may lie in a profound, shared human need. The sky was the one constant, the only truly predictable element in a world of uncertainty, disease, and natural disaster. By building their world in its image, they sought to bring that cosmic order and permanence down to Earth, to stabilize their societies and connect their fleeting lives to the timeless dance of the heavens. This global conversation with the stars reveals both our shared ingenuity and the unique cultural fingerprints of every civilization that ever dared to map the infinite. The challenge of celestial construction began not with the stars, but with the Earth itself. Quarrying a single multi-ton block of stone was a monumental task, but moving it miles across rugged terrain to a precise location demanded a kind of genius we still struggle to fully comprehend. Without cranes or engines, these builders relied on a profound understanding of physics, using nothing more than ropes, levers, and immense, coordinated human effort. Engineering analysis suggests that massive earthen ramps, built with compacted soil and rubble, were the primary solution for raising stones into position. Teams of laborers would haul these colossal blocks on wooden sledges, perhaps lubricating the path with water or mud to reduce friction, inching them upward day by day until the stone slotted perfectly into its celestial design. For longer distances, water transport offered an elegant solution. Stones were floated on barges along rivers during the flood season, using the natural power of the current to do the heavy work, a clear example of working in harmony with the environment to achieve a cosmic goal. But the true test of their skill was maintaining alignment over vast, uneven landscapes where the starting point and the destination were not even visible to each other. Surveyors used a system of intermediary markers, a chain of sighting poles or signal fires placed on hilltops, to project a perfectly straight line across valleys and over ridges. This visual engineering locked a temple's axis to a distant mountain pass where a star would rise, a feat of planning that required not just local measurements, but a grand topographical vision. How did they ensure this precision held over decades or even centuries, as one generation laid the foundations and another capped the pyramid? The initial alignments were set with meticulous care, using the stable horizon as a permanent reference. Builders understood that massive stone foundations could settle over time, subtly throwing off their celestial targets. To compensate, they often overbuilt structures, making them larger and more massive than strictly necessary, creating a stable base that would resist shifting. Some cultures incorporated adjustable features, like slightly mobile lintel stones or doorways that could be fine-tuned by later generations as the slow wobble of the Earth's axis, precession, gradually changed the starry backdrop. This long-term perspective required not just engineering skill, but sophisticated social organization. Managing the thousands of workers, artisans, and suppliers for a multi-generational project was a logistical miracle in itself. The project demanded a shared, unwavering belief in the cosmic importance of the work, a vision powerful enough to coordinate the labor of an entire civilization. Nowhere is this ambition more physically apparent than at the Roman sanctuary of Baalbek. Here, in the sprawling temple complex, lies the famed trilithon, 3 stones each weighing over 800 tons. How Roman engineers quarried, transported, and raised these megaliths remains one of history's greatest unsolved puzzles. Yet, even while wrestling with these unimaginable weights, they precisely oriented the entire temple complex to celestial events, ensuring that the sun and stars would interact with the architecture exactly as intended. Can you fathom the collective will, the unbroken chain of command, and the sheer faith required to see such a project through to completion? These builders were not just working for their own time, they were building for eternity, creating a stone dialogue with the cosmos that would endure long after their names were forgotten. Their legacy is not merely in the silent stones they left behind, but in the enduring influence their celestial principles would have on the world that followed. The street grid of modern London rests upon a far older ghost, a Roman foundation aligned to solstice sunrises that still dictates the flow of traffic 2,000 years later. This is not an isolated relic, but a testament to the stubborn persistence of celestial urban planning, its principles woven into the very fabric of cities we consider modern. Long after the fall of empires, medieval cathedral builders looked to the heavens for inspiration. They pored over surviving classical texts and local stonemason lore, orienting their greatest churches so the rising sun on a saint's feast day would flood the altar with divine light, turning architecture into a conduit for celestial grace. The Renaissance then witnessed a full-scale revival of this cosmic thinking. Visionary architects like Leon Battista Alberti championed the ideas of Vitruvius, arguing that a city's design must reflect the harmony of the macrocosm, the universe itself. This was not mere decoration. It was a philosophical imperative to build human settlements that resonated with the natural and celestial order. That philosophical drive found powerful expression in the New World. The very plan of Washington, D.C., laid out by Pierre L'Enfant, is a masterclass in this renewed celestial order. Its streets form a grand grid aligned to the cardinal directions, while its central axis, the National Mall, points to the rising sun on the summer solstice. The Capitol Building, the White House, and the Washington Monument are positioned in a precise geometric relationship that many historians interpret as a deliberate echo of ancient stellar principles, embedding a cosmic vision into the heart of a modern republic. This cosmic reference evolved with our tools. The Greenwich Meridian, established in the 19th century, became our modern pole star, an arbitrary but universally agreed upon line of 0 degrees longitude that organizes global navigation and timekeeping, a man-made celestial anchor for the entire planet. Even in the space age, the allure of cosmic symbolism persisted. The Brazilian capital of Brasilia, conceived in the 1950s, was designed from above as a bird or airplane shape, its monumental axis and sweeping curves intended to evoke a forward-looking, almost orbital perspective on human community. One of the most poignant examples of this enduring legacy is the Pink City of Jaipur in India. In the 18th century, its planner, the astronomer King Sawai Jai Singh Roman II, used the massive astronomical instruments he built, the Jantar Mantar, to precisely align the city's gates and major avenues to key star patterns. He did not just build a city, he built a functioning observatory on an urban scale. So what elements of this ancient wisdom could restore a sense of harmony and livability to our own, often chaotic urban centers? Could reintroducing a connection to solar paths or seasonal light improve public well-being? This profound legacy, however, now faces an unprecedented threat from the relentless pace of modern development, a silent erosion of our celestial inheritance. The same stars that guided the builders of Teotihuacan are now fading behind a veil of artificial light. This modern glow is more than an inconvenience for astronomers. It is a direct threat to our understanding of ancient celestial knowledge. Light pollution from expanding cities obscures the very constellations and faint star clusters that these sites were designed to track. A temple doorway aligned with the rising of the Pleiades loses all meaning if the star cluster is invisible from that location. The subtle celestial events these builders so carefully encoded into stone are being erased from the night sky, severing our tangible connection to their cosmic vision. Urban sprawl introduces other forms of interference as well. The constant vibration from heavy traffic can gradually shift ancient stone foundations over time, disrupting alignments calibrated with millimeter precision. Atmospheric pollution from industry and vehicles scatters light and creates haze, blurring the crisp horizon line that was essential for pinpointing a star's first appearance. Climate change adds another layer of complexity, as shifting weather patterns and increased dust in the atmosphere can further degrade the clarity needed to witness these ancient celestial appointments. Dark sky advocates warn that we are not just losing a view, we are losing a priceless piece of our shared human heritage. The ability to stand where an ancient astronomer stood and see the same sky they saw is a profound experience that is becoming increasingly rare. In response, global efforts are underway to protect these sacred sightlines. UNESCO now considers archaeoastronomical value when designating World Heritage Sites, and some locations have established protected buffer zones to limit light spill and industrial development. The Giza Plateau offers a stark example. The magnificent pyramids, once isolated in the desert, now find their horizon dominated by the creeping glow of Cairo. The same urban expansion that brings life to millions also threatens to drown out the silent stellar dialogue these monuments were built to conduct. Even well-intentioned reconstruction projects can inadvertently damage this legacy. Without a deep understanding of the original celestial targets, rebuilding a collapsed wall or realigning a pathway can permanently break an astronomical connection that took generations to perfect. How many of us have truly seen the Milky Way from our own backyards? This loss of the common night sky represents a quiet cultural amnesia. Supporting local dark sky initiatives and advocating for responsible outdoor lighting are not just hobbies for enthusiasts, they are acts of preserving a human birthright. Despite these challenges, a new era of discovery is dawning, one that uses advanced technology to peer through the modern glare and recover the hidden alignments of the past. A laser sweeps across the weathered stones of a Maya temple, its invisible beam mapping every contour with millimeter accuracy. This digital point cloud reveals something the naked eye could never see, a subtle bend in a corridor wall that perfectly frames the rising point of the Pleiades star cluster on a specific night. Modern technology is now confirming the genius of ancient astronomers, providing irrefutable evidence that their celestial blueprints were executed with breathtaking precision. Tools like LiDAR are peeling back the jungle canopy from above, exposing vast urban grids in Cambodia and Central America that were aligned to solstice sunrises and planetary cycles. Meanwhile, on the ground-penetrating radar detects buried stone markers, the hidden survey points that guided the layout of entire cities. Digital archaeologists use this data to build precise elevation models of ancient horizons, allowing them to recreate the exact sky our ancestors saw. With specialized software, they can wind the celestial clock backwards, testing whether a temple doorway truly aligned with Venus on the date of its construction. This digital resurrection of the past relies on precise dating. Isotopic analysis of mortar and artifacts now allows researchers to correlate specific construction phases with rare celestial events, like a total solar eclipse that may have inspired the founding of a sacred site. Perhaps one of the most compelling validations comes from Newgrange in Ireland. For years, the winter solstice alignment of its roof box was known, but advanced three-dimensional modeling demonstrated that the narrow light channel was not a happy accident. The entire passage tomb was engineered with sophisticated understanding to capture the sun's rays for just a few minutes on the shortest day of the year, a feat that required generations of observation. This new era of discovery is not confined to universities. Citizen science projects now engage global volunteers in documenting alignments at local monuments, their collective observations feeding into massive databases that reveal cross-cultural patterns in stellar urbanism. What hidden networks of alignment might we uncover when we can simulate the sound of rituals in these spaces, or model the play of shadows at different times of day? These tools do more than just prove a point. They restore the intellectual legacy of the ancients, showing us that their vision was both profound and mathematically exact. The stones were never silent. We simply lacked the means to hear their conversation with the cosmos. That celestial wisdom etched in stone now offers a blueprint for our future. Imagine a city where architecture does not fight the environment but collaborates with it, where buildings are angled to capture the winter sun for natural warmth and designed with shading to deflect the summer heat. This is not science fiction, it is the emerging field of biophilic design, and it draws directly from the ancient playbook of stellar urbanism. Green building advocates point to the profound energy savings of such an approach. A solar-oriented neighborhood can drastically reduce its reliance on artificial heating and cooling, slashing carbon emissions while making homes more comfortable and affordable to live in. But the benefits go beyond the practical. What if a public park were laid out so that on the night of a meteor shower, you could lie on the grass and watch the sky unfold above you, unobstructed by light or buildings? Urban planners are now exploring how to designate celestial corridors, protected sightlines that connect city squares to the horizon, allowing residents to witness the moonrise or track the seasonal journey of a planet. This reconnection to cosmic rhythms has tangible psychological benefits, reducing stress and fostering a sense of wonder that is often lost in the hustle of modern life. We have the tools to make this happen today. Solar path calculators can model the sun's angle for any location on Earth at any time of year, and digital star maps can pinpoint the rising and setting of constellations with a tap on a screen. This technology allows modern architects to integrate celestial patterns as seamlessly as the builders of Teotihuacan did, but with even greater precision. Public art can play a role with installations that cast specific shadows on the equinox or mark where the sun will set on the solstice. Some forward-thinking cities are even incorporating community observatories into their parks, making powerful telescopes available for all to use and reviving the role of the public astronomer. Look at Masdar City in Abu Dhabi, a modern experiment in sustainable urban living. It draws on ancient knowledge, using a contemporary version of the traditional wind tower to funnel cool breezes through its walkways, while its entire layout is optimized for solar orientation. It is a living laboratory that proves the old ways can be updated with new materials. So, how can you bring this cosmic awareness into your own life? Perhaps by positioning a chair to catch the morning sun, or by simply learning the name of one bright star you can see from your window. These small acts are a start. They are the first steps in reweaving that celestial thread, in remembering that our well-being is still deeply connected to the grand, orderly, and beautiful motions of the cosmos. This universal pattern points toward something far deeper than architectural technique. Across continents and centuries, we find a shared human longing to anchor our world to the heavens. Our journey reveals that stellar city planning was never merely about marking time or direction. It was a spiritual endeavor to create harmony between the earthly and the divine. Ancient builders envisioned their cities as living microcosms, where the perfect, predictable order of the cosmos could be mirrored in the structure of society itself. Every solstice-aligned street and constellation-mapped pyramid was a statement of belief, a declaration that human life was an integral part of a vast, intelligent universe. Scholars like Dr. Anthony Aveney remind us that archaeoastronomy is not just about stones and stars. It is the key to understanding the very soul of ancient creativity, revealing how our ancestors used celestial order to build resilient, meaningful communities. The patterns are universal because the need is universal. From the solar axes of Roman towns to the stellar processional ways of Thebes, we see the same principles at work, a fusion of empirical observation and powerful mythological narrative. The precise tracking of a star's rise was inseparable from the story of a god's journey. The mathematical calculation of an angle was given purpose by a creation myth. These projects were not just science or religion, they were a unified system for understanding existence. In this light, we can see every ancient metropolis as a kind of cosmic clock, an instrument designed to measure not just hours but epochs, aligning human destiny with the grand, cyclical time of the galaxy. Its gears were stone, its pendulum the planets, and its face was the entire night sky. So the next time you walk through your own city or town, pause for a moment. Look up at the path of the sun. Can you sense the potential for a different kind of urban life, one that honors these ancient rhythms? Your own backyard might hold the key to glimpsing the same celestial patterns that once guided entire civilizations, inviting you to rediscover your own place in the cosmic order. This journey across ancient civilizations reveals a profound and universal truth. From the pyramids of Giza to the precise streets of Teotihuacan, the evidence is overwhelming. These builders possessed a sophisticated understanding of the stars that fundamentally shaped their worlds. We have walked along solar avenues where entire urban grids were aligned to the solstice sun. We have stood in temples where sacred geometry echoed the complex cycles of the moon. We have seen how entire constellations were mapped onto city plans, serving as celestial blueprints for empires. These were not isolated acts of superstition but calculated achievements of a deep cosmic science. They remind us of humanity's enduring quest to find our place in the universe, a drive that masterfully blended practical needs with deep spiritual yearnings. The legacy of these stellar cities now challenges us directly. In our age of artificial light and rapid urbanization, what have we forgotten? Our modern world often turns its back on the sky, yet the ancient call to look up remains. Let this exploration inspire you to gaze at the night sky with new eyes. Seek out the hidden alignments when you visit ancient sites. Advocate for preserving our dark skies and this shared astronomical heritage, a priceless piece of human history. We would love to hear which ancient celestial city amazed you the most. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey into history's greatest mysteries, subscribe for more. And always remember, the same stars that guided those ancient builders still shine above us today, holding timeless wisdom for anyone who pauses to learn their language.